tomorrow is the 35th anniversary of Mazarati's debut album, and I have very, very, very special guest, BrownMark, in the house. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's happening?
Man.
Hey, everybody out there in Purple Land.
Yeah, there is so much love that's coming through here on the chat. I'm going to try to keep up with some of these chats are like going like a million miles a minute, so I want to try to make sure that you see as many as possible. I don't know if you can actually see the scroll of the chats.
I can somewhat. They're going pretty fast, but I can see.
Yeah. Oh, so you can actually see it. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So, man, yeah, we were talking a little bit here on the pre-show before we went live on Funkatopia, or in Funked Up, that you weren't even you weren't even aware that it was the 35th anniversary of the album, and I just, it's just shocking to me.
Like, it's been that long?
Because it was so funny, because I saw there was another album that celebrated its 35th anniversary this year, which was Metallica's Master of Puppets.
Okay.
And I remember where I was when Master of Puppets came out, and I was thinking, man, did Mazarati's album come out that long ago?
Wow.
It was like within a month of each other. So it's like, wow, that's just amazing to me. Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But let's get to it, because we're going to be talking about the history of the album, the background, how you put the band together. But I also want to kind of talk a little bit about the individual songs, which is kind of what we do on the album chats, just to kind of absorb it a little bit and understand, where your thought process was. But just to talk about you just for a second, and we may have tapped on this a little bit in the past couple of interviews. Briefly talked about how you got involved in music and who were some of your primary influences that compelled you to, pick up a bass guitar.
Wow. I mean, I have many, from the earliest days. Jermaine Jackson, I think, was my first influence. That big old afro and the way he would dance with the Jackson 5. That's what really got me motivated. But as time went on, I kind of put the bass away until I was in my teenage years, even though I messed around with it a little bit. But then my influences became Slave. Mr. Marks, man, they were like my favorite. And then Larry Graham, of course. Wow, I mean, there's so many. Bootsy, can't miss Bootsy. Stanley Clarke at the time, Jaco Pastorius. So I grew up in a time period where there were a lot of funky bass players. There were a lot of musicians, not like you see nowadays. Back then, and we were a dime a dozen. So I had a lot of influence. Earth, Wind and Fire, Verdine White,
Oh yeah,
that list can go on.
You got to do Verdine. And I also see there's another guest that's actually in the wings right here. A gentleman who joined, I guess it was for Mazarati 2 is when he came on board, GSharp.
Oh yeah, is he on?
Yeah, GSharp is in the house too. Look at this.
Where is he at? Oh, GSharp.
Yeah, look at this.
I gotta talk about why you big. Why you
microphone working? Why you crusty Paul Bunyan shirt wearing? What's happening?
Why you crocodile hunter hat wearing looking?
I was trying to go on with my computer. I log in with my computer. For some reason, it wouldn't log in for some reason.
Yeah, I can see that green screen behind you.
What's up, people?
I told you to stop buying computers
from
the pawn shop, man. I told you.
Wow,
I know, right? I know, right?
Computer buying.
Why you?
Oh, man, my goodness gracious!
I'm gonna let you slide because we're on live.
I know.
I'm gonna let you slide because we're on live. All right.
Look, man.
All right.
I got Zuckerberg on, man. I can send you an Apple. I can send you a Mac or something.
All right, so back to the discussion. For those of you just joining us on the Funked Up app, if you want to join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Funkatopia, you can kind of watch along and see half of a green screen behind GSharp. And BrownMark, he's also here. We're talking about the 35th anniversary of the Mazarati debut album from Mazarati. And so we kind of got some crew from Mazarati in here. We're going to be talking about this stuff, and we can kind of go back in time and talk a little bit about the influence, the involvement of BrownMark with Prince. But, you know, I don't want to kind of rehash this because we're talking about Mazarati right here. We're already going to be tapping on the stories of Prince here and there anyways. But what I do find interesting is that when you were working with Prince, your decision to break away and kind of quietly put together Mazarati, well, secretly is probably, oh, G just dropped off. Secretly is probably a better word. So, and you said in your book, which I have right here, by the way, everybody needs to pick this up right here. My Life in the Purple Kingdom. If you have not picked up your copy yet, you absolutely positively need to pick this up. It's My Life in the Purple Kingdom. Actually pick it up. It's a really, really good read. But you had mentioned in that book that some of the people didn't even know who really was behind the Mazarati, and they were calling you the Shadow. Do you know where that nickname came from?
That's what I told everybody to call me, because you know we couldn't figure it out. It's like you know, everybody knew this group came from somewhere, somebody that had some experience, and so you know I was like I don't want anybody to know it's me. I mean, because if dude finds out that it's me, man, I'm gonna be in some heat. So you know I had to kind of keep them hidden. And so we came up with this whole shadow concept. I used to wear this gold mask looking like Batman with a gold mask. And I had like a silver coat. And I mean, I was looking crazy, but that's how I had to hide myself. And I would come in to every concert. I'd be behind the soundboard, trying to, you know, adjust some sound and get them sounding good. But nobody ever figured it out. So,
well, you know, and part of it was, I think you and I had talked before, you know, part of it was, you know, trying to put this together so that Prince really didn't know that you were doing your own thing, but also probably internally, you mentioned that there was also a little bit of a conflict, that you were concerned that Prince may come along and actually try to take Mazarati from you, and may try to, you know, claim it as his own. And explain a little bit about that feeling.
Well, I mean, it's like with anything, when you're a soldier and you got a general that you're working with, you have no power, you have no rank, you have nothing. I was just I was a what do I like to call it? I'm just a foot soldier, man. I was brought in to do a job, and I was, he taught me how to go out and slaughter. I mean, that's what I did. I grabbed my bass and I would try to just hurt whatever stage I stepped on.
And you did.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of Prince's thing. Everything was about war, man. Everything was about a gang fight. We got to go beat them up, And so that kind of mentality was like driven into us. And so I knew that if he found out that I had something that was too hot to be cool, because I mean, Morris Day and the Time were cool. We were too hot to be cool. We were Mazarati. So I knew that he would lock onto that, and then he would like kind of shut me out of it. And it happens all the time in the music industry. So it's not just something he would do. It's just, if you're a smart businessman, that's just what you would do, just to protect your own entity, your own camp.
Right.
Because I am developing my own camp inside his camp. So that's almost like treason. So
and the funny thing that I noted on here was that in 1984, which is actually a couple years preceding, or maybe about a year and some change preceding the release of this album, Morris Day had stepped away from the Time. And what was interesting about that particular part is that Prince had said, that the Purple Rain tour that we did wasn't really the Purple Rain tour. The Purple Rain tour that he had in his mind was almost like you had mentioned, like a battle of the band scenario, where it was going to be the Revolution versus the Time, and it was going to be this big thing. And when Morris Day kind of stepped away from the band and kind of caused this caused this rift, it actually kind of broke apart those plans. And what was interesting is that I was reading Dwayne Tudall's book, and Dwayne said, well, not Dwayne, he wasn't the one that said it, but Jerry Hubbard said that Prince was kind of walking around just really hyping up Mazarati. I mean, just like, oh, Maserati's going to be killing it. Maserati's going to be, it's going to be the next big thing. And oh my gosh, you guys are not even ready for it. And I think, you know, part of that was trying to kind of upset the remaining members of the time that were there, to kind of let them know, hey, your replacement is here. And were you aware? I mean, and he may have been doing part of that for show, but were you aware at any point in time that Mazarati was potentially being perceived as an alternative to the time, to kind of serve as his funky nemesis as the time had been?
No, I never saw it that way, because he didn't know anything about him until, I don't know how he got wind of it, but you know, he called me up. I believe it was after Purple Rain already. And I remember he flew me out to LA and picked me up at the airport. And that's weird. That's strange. So I knew something was wrong, you know, and we're in the car and we're driving. And he goes, I know you have a band. And I was just like, oh, you know, and then he's like, I know you have a band, and, you know, we need to work together. And so, you know, it became that whole thing, which I don't mind. But at that point, I kind of knew that, okay, now he sees all the attention they're getting, because they had a cult following. I mean, Mazarati, I don't know if you realize, but I put them together in 1981, the year I joined Prince's band. Wow. See, I start because they were going to be my band. I was going to be the lead singer of Mazarati. And because I was very unsure of my path with Prince, you know, because I just got in the band, and already, you know, I was having some ups and downs. You read that in the book. And so I was very unsure of if I was even going to stay there. So I started putting together my own thing. And right before the 1999 tour, it was getting good, and I decided I was going to stay. So Mazarati was going to become their own entity. And that's when Terry Casey became the main focus of that group for me, and started to build everything around Terry, you know.
Right.
Me and Terry went to school together.
You know, so as for your involvement, I mean, a lot of people aren't aware, because I guess some people actually were just only heard the songs on the radio, and other people got the music in different ways. But for your involvement, you weren't technically actually in the band. You were pretty much the producer, arranger, writer, engineer of the album. But did you have any musical involvement at all on any of the tracks on the actual album recordings that didn't get credited?
I don't know, GSharp. I mean, here, let's just keep it real, okay? We just gonna keep it real.
The way I can keep it,
man. I was a one-man band. I played all that stuff. I was Mazarati.
Maserati.
You know,
just like the time. There was no real time until they put a band together.
This is something new that I was not even aware of, because you don't even list yourself at all. At least when Prince did that, it was very obvious because of the way that he kind of listed himself in, but you didn't even put yourself in the mix and the credits at all on that album.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a conscious choice. That is freaking amazing.
I wanted all the glory to go to them, but you know, I mean, that's so many years ago now. I just don't care. But you know, back then, I wanted all the glory to go to them. And I mean, there were a few players like Screamer. Screamer helped me a lot with that album. He came in and he played on a lot of stuff. Near the end, I used Marvin on a couple things, one of the keyboard players. But for the most part, I mean, it was so much easier for me. And I had, like Prince, I mean, that's who I learned from. He was my mentor. And I learned how to go in the studio and record as a band, not as a producer. And so I had this ability from him to one track at a time. I would always start with the drums, and I learned how to start to build on it, just like Prince. I sit in the studio with him and I would watch him. I would watch how he did it. Because you got to remember, before Prince, I ain't never even heard of that before. You know, a one-man band going to the studio and wearing it out like that. And dude was bad. I mean, I ain't going to take no credit away. That brother was a genius. And when he would get into the studio, he would wear it out. And so I had to get like that. Maybe not on his level, but you know what? I was like, I can do that. And then it became so much easier than trying to bring 6, 7 cats up in here and, you know, and have to take after take because somebody missed a note or something. It was just so much easier for me to just play it myself.
Wow. And that's, I mean, the fact I had no idea, literally, I see, this is why we do these shows, is because I learn something new every day and I know that I was not alone. So let's talk. First off, for those of you just joining us, you are witnessing actually a pre-recording. This is supposed to be a pre-recording, but we went ahead and just made it live so that all you guys could participate in this. It's good to see so many people in here and so many. I mean, it's amazing. But I brought on the amazing BrownMark in here to talk about the debut album for Mazarati that's going to be celebrating its 35th anniversary tomorrow. Wow. And he brought along a very, very special guest, GSharp. GSharp, we got to give you a little bit of airtime, man. Why don't you, BrownMark, why don't you tell us a little bit about how GSharp came into the fold, into the Mazarati mix?
Well, first of all, he's going to need a lot of airtime because that dude be talking. Nah, just kidding.
No, I have a mute button, so we're
me and G, you know, like from, man, when did we run into each other? Tennessee, like back in '83 or something like that.
In Memphis.
And yeah. I saw him at a club, man. He was in this club. What were they called? G.
We were called Fingerprint. That was the name
Fingerprint.
of the band.
Man, yep. These dudes was laying some fingerprints. They was bad. And I was sitting up there, and so I sent some of the security up there. I said, hey, man, tell them cats, you know, I got to meet them. Was it Gilbert? Yeah, Gilbert. Yeah. And, man, ever since then, I brought him in, he and Morris Hayes from NPG. It was those two together. And so they came to Minneapolis and we worked out on, you know, a whole bunch of different stuff. And then Morris, of course, ends up with MPG. G ended up with Carmen Electra, and he was doing some other stuff with Prince over at Paisley when I kind of disappeared on Motown. So GSharp, when I was on Motown, they wanted me to try to revive Mazarati and do a second album, but I thought that was kind of strange because, you know, that's an R&B soul kind of a label. And here we are, a funk rock band. How is this going to work? And so anyways, we brought G in because he had kind of that slide thing, you know, and real raspy, hard rock tone in his voice, where Terry is a bad boy, you know, but he was a little more smooth. So we wanted to combine that combination of vocal and energy to the group and try something a little different. And yeah, that's where G came in. Go ahead, G.
So,
take the flow.
So G, so G, like what? Tell us a little bit about, you know, how you decided to just go ahead and just throw your hat in the ring with BrownMark. What was that deciding factor? Is like, yeah, I want to work with this guy.
I've always said that if I was going to write a book, I would title it Star Adjacent, because virtually everything that's happened with Prince, BrownMark, Mazarati, The Time, everybody, if they had the camera on Prince, I was probably right off camera. If they had the camera on Mark, I was probably right off camera. When Mark did that interview with Motown with Donnie Simpson, Video Soul, I flew them to DC with Brown to do that so he wouldn't have to do all that by himself. I was right there the whole time. So interestingly enough, I was playing in this bar in Memphis, and Fingerprint was the best band in town. And not only were we the best band in town, we were the best band, period. We were trying to beat everybody up. It wasn't like we were trying to beat up the local Memphis bands. We didn't care about any of that, right? So At the time, Morris wasn't in Fingerprint. At the time, it was a guy named Ross Rice, who was another genius keyboard player. And we were playing in this bar called the Western Frontier, and we were doing all kind of stuff, including Prince music, right? So I had just finished doing Darling Nikki, Humping the Floor. The whole dance floor clears out every time I do the song. And as soon as the song is over, there's this keyboard drone, and we go into Careless Whisper by George Michael, right? And after we finish that song, the set's over. Then Gilbert walks up to me, right? I don't know Gilbert from a can of paint. So Gilbert walks up to me, and he says, Mr. Brown wants to see you. And I'm like, who, James? And he's like,
who, James?
he's like, no, BrownMark from the Revolution. I was like, oh, no, he's here, huh? Yeah, so I walked over. And at the table was Gilbert, Hucky, Craig Rice, about 4 or 5 crazy hot chicks, and BrownMark. And he says, the first thing Brown says to me is, what's up, man? I said, hey, what's up? He says, y'all got close. I was like, what? What do you mean? Right? So what he was saying was, of all the bands that he's heard do Prince stuff, we got close. And the reason why he said that is because I don't know how many guys watching this right now are musicians, but you literally cannot cover a Prince song correctly.
Unless
because
you mean, nah, just kidding.
Because there's chord changes and there's notes and ghost notes and stuff that Prince would put in his music that you don't hear because you're trying to learn it from your perspective instead of learning the actual song. So he said, you guys got close, right? And then after that, he invited me and the whole band to go see the Prince of Revolution on the Purple Rain tour. So, and it wasn't like no nosebleed. Brown gave us some dope seats, man. We were like, whoa, right? And then after the first show, he invited me over to the Peabody, which is where every superstar in Memphis stays in that hotel, right? With the Ducks. So I go up to the hotel, and my band was like, oh, so he invited you to the hotel, huh? I said, yeah. They were like, man, you know them Prince dudes, man. They got all that. I said, man, Brown don't get no gaydar go off. My gaydar don't go off at all on Brown. I said, I'm going to the room, player. Right? So, you might have 10 chicks over there, man. I'm in, right? So I go to the room, and he's got a big giant suite, right? Because Prince got the whole floor. And he's got a keyboard set up in the room. And he lets me hear Players Ball, right? Now, this is before Mazarati came out. He let me hear the pink, 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 pink. He let me hear the whole deal, right? And all of a sudden, the door knocks. Boom, boom, boom. Mark didn't pay no attention to it. And then I said, you gonna get that? He said, nah, I'm good. Knocks again. Boom, boom, boom. And do nothing. Knocks again. Boom, boom, boom. So Mark go get the door. It's Big Chick, Jerome Benton, and Prince. So this is the first time I saw Prince up close, right? Which was oddly interesting. So Prince goes up. I said, yo, man, it was a great show. I'm thinking about getting out of the business after watching that. He said, yeah, me too. And then he goes over to Mark's keyboard. And basically what he was doing, he heard Mark playing in his room. And Prince was like, he was like the FBI. If anything was going on, he wanted to know what it was, right? So he goes up in the room and he's listening to Mark, and he's talking. Mark talks to him for a second. And then Prince starts playing some Gap Band. He just goes into some Gap Band for some reason, and he leaves. Mark said, I hate that dude. I hate how he does it. He puts on the show everywhere he is, make sure he's the man, right? So anyway, so the next night we went to the show, and they were supposed to do 3 nights, but the third night got canceled for some reason. And then when they came back to Memphis, we went to the third night. So then after all of that, Mark gets a hold of me and say, yo, man, I'm going to fly you to Minneapolis. And I want you to record some stuff with me. I said, okay, cool. So he flew me to Minneapolis. It was the first time I'd ever been to Minneapolis. So I get to Minneapolis, and I learned 2 things when I first got to Minneapolis. First of all, the city wasn't nearly as cool as I thought it was going to be from watching, Purple Rain. And secondly, I'd never seen anybody tall and skinny like me could eat that much. Mark ate like a great white shark. I never seen anything like it, man. and he was buying stuff like a shark, right? We were walking on uptown, and we come up to a little store that had you remember, Mark, you had that night armor night thing you had in your house?
Yeah.
I was with him when he bought that, right? So we just walking down the street, and we just eating at a Chinese restaurant. So we walking down the street, and I remember this too. You had shrimp and lobster sauce. I've been eating that ever since. Right?
I still eat that.
I know, me too, right? So so he sees the knight and armor thing in the window. He said, "Whoa!" So we walked back. He said, "How much is that?" He said, "No, don't worry about it. Can you just ship it to my house?" They were like, "Yeah, sure, Mr. Brown." Blah blah blah. So he wrote something. And then we just kept on walking. I said, "Dude, did you just buy that shit?" so anyway, there was some star stuff. I was tripping. I was a kid, right? So we kept on walking. Then he said, "Okay, we gotta go." So we got in the car. We're driving down Lake Street, and at the time, Klein Chevrolet was on Lake Street, and that was when Lake Street went both ways, right? So we're going west on Lake Street, passed by Klein Chevrolet. Mark looks in the corner of his. Now he's driving a brown. Was it a cream or brown colored Corvette? Something like that. And my little suitcase stuffed up in the back because it's a 2-seater, right? So Mark does a U-turn in the middle of Lake Street. Right? See, I'm just giving you guys some crazy human backstory. I'm not, the rock star stuff, you can read that in the book. But we did a U-turn in the middle of Lake Street. Comes back around, pulls up in the lot, right? Mark jumps out. He said, let's go in. So we both go in, and there's a woman there named Ruth. And I think Ruth sold Jimmy cars, Terry, everybody. She sold everybody their cars out of Klein Chevrolet, right? So we go in. Mark says, "How much for that Corvette?" And it was a black Corvette. I think it had red leather interior.
With the fin on the back.
The fin on the and so we go in. Mark says, "Look, I need you to take all my stuff out of there. Ruth, keep his suitcase underneath your desk." She's like, "Cool, no problem." He said, "I need all my sound system out of my car, put into that car, and how long will that take?" She said, how long you want it to take?" He said, "I'll be back in 2 hours." Okay, cool. So we go for a walk and go eat again. All right. By the time we come back, his car is already traded in. The black Corvette is hooked up with his sound system, everything in it. And we jump in that joint and pull off, right? And then we head out to Eden Prairie. We go out to Eden Prairie on Duck Lake Trail. And we go out there, and I go up in his house. He's got these porcelain dogs, big giant dogs in the house, all kind of stuff, right? And we go, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a Mac computer, right? It was one of those little square deals like that with a screen about that big, right? So anyway, he had all the cool stuff. And he also, remember you had that black, was it black? Yeah, black Blazer.
Oh, yeah.
Chevy Blazer, right?
S10. Yeah, the S10.
Right. So that night we said it was Thursday. So that night we're gonna go down to First Avenue for funk night, right? So I put on my little country stuff I had on for Memphis, and Mark said, "No." It was almost like Morris Day on that Segway. "I got something for you to wear," right? So Mark and I were both basically the same size, right? He had broader shoulders, but we were basically the same height and everything. So he says, "Try that on." He pulls out this dope suit, right? He said, "Try that on." So I put on this suit. I'm like, "Man, I can't wear this, dude." He said, "No, I'm telling you, we're going out." So we go to First Avenue. Terry's there, Jimmy, everybody's there, right? Everybody. Because it's funk night at First Ave, right? On the way down there, Mark's driving. He's listening to some music bumping. And he pulls up to a stoplight, and there's these hot chicks in the car over to the right. And Mark's he said, "Watch this." Oh, yeah, I'm calling him out. Okay, so he said, "Watch this." He rolls down his window, and he has a little bucket of ping pong balls in the console. And he throws the ping pong ball and hits their window.
Is this going to be family safe?
No, man. Yeah, it is. But he hits the window, ping pong ball, and he pulls up this big brick phone, right? The big brick, right? He pulls the brick and he says, "Call me." He says, "Call me," like that. And the girl's like, "Ah!" I was freaking out. So anyway, that was my first experience with the Minneapolis thing. All the cats in Minneapolis and hanging out with Brown, right? But after that was over, I just did some demo stuff with him, and after that, I'm in Austin, Texas, because I moved from Memphis. Then went to Austin, started my band, The Business. That's the band that Morris and I were in Austin, and I get a call like at 8 in the morning. Now I just done a gig, right? So I'm basically asleep. But for some reason in my mind, I know you guys don't think I'm making this up, but in my mind, I was saying to myself, there's got to be something better than playing in a bar in Austin. Got to be, right? Man, Craig Rice calls me. I don't know how he got my number. I don't know nothing about it. All I know is Craig Rice calls me. Maybe Mark gave it to him. He
that
says,
was everybody's manager back then, you know.
Yeah, he was everybody's manager, right? So Craig Rice calls me and he says, "Hey man, speak with Greg, please." And I was like, "Yeah, this is Greg. Who is this? This is Craig Rice. I'm the manager of Mazarati. I met you at the thing, blah blah blah, and we're putting a second album to Mazarati. I want to know if you would like to be in the band." And I'm like, well, what about Terry, right? And can I swear on here?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, I said, so what about Terry? Because we had met Terry and those guys because we played Maserati songs in front of them on a show in Memphis, right? So he knew I could sing. He knew all of that because he had seen the whole deal. So he said, "We want you to sing, be one of the singers of Mazarati." And I'm like, "Well, what about Terry?" Terry snatches the phone from him. "Nigga, come on up here and get this money," right? like Charlie. It was just like Dave Chappelle with Rick James.
Rick James. Yeah.
Get this money, nigga. Get this money now, boy. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, all right. So I get up, and they say we'll call you back in an hour. I get up, I go wake up Morris, and I wake up my boy Selden, who's playing bass with us. Selden plays with the Temptations now. But I wake up Selden and Morris and said, "Man, I got some news. I gotta talk to you guys." And they're like, What? They thought something had happened to my family or something. I said, "I just got off the phone with Craig Rice, and he's thinking he wants me to join Mazarati, which means I'd have to move to Minneapolis, dude. And I ain't trying to lead a band. We all for one for all, right?" And Morris like, "So what's the problem?" And I'm like, "Well," he said, "Look, man, you've been pulling me up since I was in college. I know that if anything go down in Minneapolis where there's any inkling that they need anybody, even a tambourine player, you're going to call me. I already know that. So go get this money. And if you can pull us in, that's cool. If not, Godspeed." So I moved to Minneapolis, joined Mazarati. And when I got there, it was all kind of ragtag cats in the band at that time. It was, man. It was Lenny was in the band.
Was Lenny?
Lenny was in the band. Pretty Boy Floyd was on bass. It was all kind of cats, man. It was all kind of cats. And then finally it whittled down to more original cats. Marv and Tony were already gone. They weren't in the band. They were doing some other stuff. I don't know what they were doing, but they were gone. And Lenny was on guitar, lead guitar. Screamer was playing rhythm guitar. Me and Terry were singing and fronting, and Morris wasn't in the band yet. It was Dave Satterberg, and Aaron, right? And Aaron did what Aaron does and got fired. As soon as he got fired, I'm just calling it.
Here come Morris.
Yeah, I'm like, "Hey,
I told you
Craig,
guys, be real, right?"
Right. I said, "Craig,
No holds barred.
I was like, "Craig, call Morris." "Well, do you think Craig? Call Morris." "Well, what if Craig call Morris?" "Well, where is he gonna?" "Craig, call Morris." Right. So Morris flies into town. We start rehearsing. Me and Morris living in Craig Rice's 1-bedroom office apartment. Craig moves in with his girl at the time, and we're sharing a honey bun. We so broke, it was crazy. Crazy, dude. It was a single bed in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we would take the single bed and switch up. I would put the mattress on the floor in the living room, and I would sleep on the box spring with my clothes on top of it one night, and then Morris would switch up, and I would sleep on the mattress the next day. And when Popeye's Chicken opened up on Lake Street, The first day it opened up, we went in there and bought a 2-piece. We found the money to buy a 2-piece. And we used to go down to the clubs with Mazarati at night and pick up girls so we could eat breakfast the next day.
Well, that's because y'all spent your advance on hair products.
I didn't have no advance. That's just it.
Which is why he wears a hat to this day.
Hey, you remember that? Don't you remember that? I remember it was $25,000 advance came in. Just, to help the band get started. I know you didn't get your, but everybody else had them Jerry curls.
Yeah, them curls.
They, I mean,
and I think they money all kind of makeup and all that kind of stuff. I told them from the gate. I said, look, I'll put makeup on like Mark used to put it on baser for the facer. But other than that, all that pretty, I ain't wearing no lace. I ain't nothing. I'm a dude. Straight up, I'm dude. I'm coming like real, right? So what Motown didn't realize, because technically they were bringing me in because it's Motown. So they didn't want a guy who's just a rock screamer. They wanted a guy who could actually sing too. But they didn't realize it was going to be like Sly Stone. It wasn't going to be no pretty, Temptation voice, right? So me and Terry worked really well together, right? And when it all smoked out, it did what all record companies do. They hire you and then they fire you, right? And when they fired us, I stayed in the city. So did Morris. And we just kept on doing what we do. And since then, I've worked with Mark off and on, but we had never been in a band together. So when Bobby Z had the heart attack and started doing the stuff for the Purple Heart Foundation, he brought the revolution back for the first time in like 25 years. And he asked me to sing backup, and he asked my girl Brenna Marie to sing backup. So we were singing backup, and then I got to come up front and sing a couple of songs too. It was highlight of my career. I could shut down right then. But on that night, Brown says to me, "Man, one day, man, we gotta." I said, "Well, hey, man, you know me. Anytime you call, bro, I'm in. I'm a mercenary. I'll go in, right?" So then when he called me about this thing he was gonna do with Mazarati, another shot at it. I was like, cool. And he had Tony Christian in this one. And Tony, I always call Tony like Queen Elizabeth. Now I'm not calling him gay. He's straight as hell, but he's nuts, man. He's nuts. And he act like a queen of a whole nation, right? Like everybody bow down to Tony Christian, right? And I was the guy, just like with Terry, my job was to keep him in line. And that's basically what I did, right? So we did the thing. We did a couple of gigs. I got a dope guitar, as you can see, with my name on it, GSharp. Right? So I mean, Mark's known me for 30 years, man, and he knows I'm his evil twin. So if anything, we're like the Corsican brothers. Anything he's thinking, I'll say it out loud because Mark ain't gonna cut. I'll cuss your ass all the way out.
Mark, you are absolutely right. Once you flip that switch, he's on.
He's on. I told you.
It ain't scared either. Mark got but one more thing. Thing. I'm done. You can cut me off if you want to.
Man, but mute button.
Mark, right. Mark.
We'll talk about Mazarati in a second.
I told Mark he was I always call Mark the reluctant superstar. He never, ever acts like a star. His ego might be there because you have to have an ego to get on stage and do anything, right? Mm. To assume people care what you sound like. That requires a certain amount of ego. But I use my ego like an AK-47, right? If I pull it out, I'm going to kill you, point blank, right? And I let people know, don't mess with GSharp because he ain't nobody to play with, right? So, and Mark will sick me on people all the time. all the time.
Oh my God.
I'll sit back and listen now. Mazarati.
For those of you just joining us, wondering what the hell did I just tune into?
Right. You just tuned into the baddest dude you don't know. That dude you never heard. Right?
Don't tempt him to break out that AK-47. We are doing an album chat for the 35th anniversary of Mazarati's debut album. It's going to be celebrating 35 years of the release date tomorrow, but we doing the pre-recording of the show. Lucky enough to have BrownMark on with a special guest GSharp as well. And so, let's take a minute and talk about this, talk about who you had in the credits. For those, this was a really, really big shocker to me to just find out before G-Sharp started talking, when you revealed that you played everything on the Mazarati album, but you weren't even in the credits at all. The credits were Sir Casey Terry on lead vocals, Tony Christian on guitar, keyboards, and backing vocals, Screamer Craig Powell on guitar and backing vocals, Jerome Cox on bass, Marstar on keyboards, Aaron Paul Keith on keyboards, and Kevin Patrick on drums and percussion. So where are all these guys now? Because it seems like, you know, I know when we came, well, I saw Tony. Matter of fact, when you had the private show in Atlanta, and I guess we were talking about the BrownMark Nation / Mazarati shows, and we were talking there. Tony was there. What's going on with everybody else? Did they all kind of go their separate ways, or what was the story behind all them?
You know, I love them guys, man. You know, they was my brothers from school. I mean, and you know, we go way back, but life happens, and many different things come at different directions, and sometimes it knocks people off track. And once you get knocked off the track, Prince used to always say to me, once the train gets to moving, you can't stop it. You got to keep it moving. But when you get knocked off track, sometimes it's hard to get back on and find out where you're at. All the wind gets knocked out of you, and you have trouble getting back into the groove. And I think that's what happened with those guys. I mean, there was a lot of sabotage, you know, with the labels, and there was a lot of money, financial issues. Prince shipped me off to, I mean, it's all in the book, you know, I'm talking about this. And then I got this next book, After the Rain, where I really get into the Mazarati story with a little more depth. But I got shipped out to Nice, France, because we were getting ready to do Under the Cherry Moon, which, you know, anybody seen the movie, you know, I'm in there for what, 15 seconds. But yet right. I was there forever. And I thought that was kind of odd. Why am I stuck here? And every time I try to get a ticket home, I remember Karen would be like, no, Prince wants you to stay here, wants you to do some press next week. I was like, press? You know, like I said, I'm a soldier, so I would stay. And they canceled. We're going to do it next Friday. So I ended up just staying in Nice, France, doing nothing. And little did I know that during the whole time, my band was being absolutely dissected piece by piece. You know, when I got back to the States, finally, it was in disarray. And so I didn't even know where to pick up the pieces. And then, so there was a lot of financial stuff that went down as well, because they didn't know where their money was. I didn't know where their money was. I didn't know where my money was. I just knew that every other week, somebody was asking me to write a check for 50 grand because they got some bills to pay. And so I'm supporting this group, and I just couldn't support it anymore. I got to a point where I said, you know, I got to wash my hands clean and move on and do something else, because when I came back from Europe, my whole world was just crumbling. It seemed like it felt like a sabotage to me, because I couldn't pull it back together. It was impossible. And so me and the guys fell out because, you know, I think they were looking to blame somebody, and I think I became the center of blame for them. And then I was blaming them for drinking too much and just tearing up hotel rooms, and they were blaming me for not watching out for them. I mean, it just went back and forth, and we kind of fell out. And through the years, we just never were able to pull it back together. And then recently, a few years ago, I had a sit-down meeting with Terry and with Tony Christian, and me and Screamer were always cool. And then Aaron kind of came back in the scene, and everything was cool for a minute, but then, you know, we had this meeting and it just didn't work out. The meeting, you know, after the meeting, I literally got him walked out, because I was like, I can't do this. It's dysfunctional. The whole thing was so dysfunctional that I had to leave it alone. And it's sad to say because I had been trying to help Craig Rice and a few other people put this group back together for years, but it was just I always ask, gee, I call it the curse of Mazarati because it just something happened that was so destructive that they've never been able to pull it back together. You know,
Right.
and that's the story right there, you know.
Well, we're here to celebrate this album because when the album got released, it was there were always a lot of albums that seemed to kind of get pushed out that were affiliated with Prince. And if Prince had it, you had those collective people that were out there that, and I admittedly was one of them, that if Prince was on something, you had to buy it. And so I know that you got a lot of traction for the album even simply based on the fact that people were aware that he was involved with 100 miles per hour. Absolutely. So I want to talk just real quickly. I know, we kind of running a little short on time unless you're in a rush or whatever, or not in a rush. I do want to talk about a couple tracks on this album and that were not on this album. Let me take that back. Specifically, the song Mazarati that became Susanna's Pajamas that ended up going over to the family. What is the story with that particular song? Was that song presented to you as, hey, this is going to be your song, I want you guys to play it? What was the story behind Susanna's Pajamas, and why did it end up on your plate and then not on your plate?
Okay. So now you talking stuff I don't even know about.
Really? Okay.
Susanna's Pajamas. I'm like, what? Whose pajamas?
Yeah.
No. Little Mazarati. I think, isn't that the song you said?
Right. Yeah.
Little Mazarati was the very first song I ever wrote.
There was a song called Mazarati. It was spelled differently than the band name. It was Mazerati. It was an instrumental that he had created, and it got renamed to Susanna's Pajamas, according to Prince Vault. And they said that it was supposed to be on your album, but I guess he changed his mind about it, similar to the story with Kiss that had happened. But I don't know that Susanna's Pajamas ever ended up in front of you.
Mazarati. The very first song I wrote for Mazarati was called Little Mazarati.
Little Mazarati. Yeah. Okay.
And it's out there. It's circulating, but it don't sound anything like, Susanna's Pajamas. Right. So and somehow those stories got mixed up, I guess.
See, it's kind of like how, some people go on the newspaper and the radio and go online and say that Prince's house at Paisley Park. I'm like, you idiot, that was a studio. That wasn't his house. He had an apartment in it. But when you start that stuff, it just keeps circulating into nonsense.
And that's why we do these shows, is to get that clarification and clean that stuff up. It's just, so what is the truth to the fact that Jerk Out was going to be your song?
Now, Jerk Out was definitely a song he brought to me.
Okay.
But you got to understand, at that time period, music was changing so rapidly that even I was rethinking my solo career. I didn't want a solo career. That was Motown was really, they wanted me to do this. And New Jack Swing was coming in. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do an album, I want Teddy Riley, I want Babyface, I want Jimmy Jerry, I want Gerald Levert. I had my whole lineup of producers I wanted to produce me. And they said, nope, They said, you know how to do this stuff yourself. We want you to do it. And I said, you guys don't understand. I can produce other people. When it comes to producing myself, I can't step outside of myself and take a look and see what it looks like. See, so I really need these producers to come in and do me. And so they wasn't having it. And so that's how that kind of fell apart. But when Jerk Out came to the table, prior to that, it was the same scenario. The music was changing so rapidly. This undertone, this undercurrent was coming up of this new Jack Swing and hip hop, that I just knew Jerk Out, for a new group like Mazarati, if it wasn't going to be funk rock, Jerk Out was not going to do what 100 miles an hour could have done for them. And so that was my thought process. And I just looked at Prince and I was like, nah, I'm not feeling that, dude. I'm not feeling that song. And he says, oh, okay. And then that's when he came with 100 miles an hour. So I said, no, that's more like what I'm talking about right there.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong. I mean, once, the time actually did jerk out, jerk out was definitely a time song for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it got sat on for a long time until 1990s Pandemonium. But,
Have you
when
ever
the
heard
album,
Maserati's version of that?
no, I have not.
It's
You're going to
fun.
have to send that to me.
The Maserati version of Jerk Out's the dope, man. It's dope.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay.
Yeah,
We're going to have to look for that one for
Cause
sure.
Terry, Terry had that little smooth pimp thing going on. Like, didn't have a damn thing to do. I mean, it was just smooth the way he approached them lyrics, man. And it was dope. But I just
Nice.
felt like you said it was more of a time song. It just wasn't. I wasn't feeling it.
And because
Right.
the time had a very specific sound that was timeless, it was just corner phrase, but they had their own sound. So you could do a song from the 80s and put it on the time today, and it fits because that's what their song was. Their sound was from the 80s. So anything they do is going to be just like that, or you're screwing up, right? Same thing happened with the second Maserati album. We got signed to Motown right as Motown was changing over to MCA basically, and they were bringing in all that new jack swing and all that. So at that point, they started writing stuff for us that didn't even fit Maserati.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, because I want to talk about Maserati too for a second, also, even though it has nothing to do with the 35th anniversary of this album, but I do want to talk about it for a second because, but I do have a question that a lot of people have been asking since we started this broadcast, and on top of that, it's been asked many times, and I think I've asked you via text. People want to know, is this album, the debut album, going to be remastered and re-released? And not only that, but also people were asking about your first couple of solo albums as well, as far as whether or not those were going to be remastered and re-released. And if so, what is the time frame that we may be looking at that we might be able to expect something like that?
Here's the problem. You've heard Taylor Swift and everybody else is complaining about record companies, right? They own the masters. I went to Paisley, I went to Warner Brothers, and I tried to negotiate, tried to get them to give me the masters for the Maserati album. No go, they won't do it. So there's nothing that I can do. I was told the only thing that I can do is actually go back in the studio and rewrite the entire album, which I can do. But then it's going to have a little different vocal tone because I don't have Terry, and I had to really think about, is this really something that I want to do? And so I am going to rewrite some of the songs, but I cannot release the album. They will not give me the masters. And as long as I don't have the masters, I don't have the voices, the vocals.
Isn't there some type of timeline or something where it becomes like a public domain type of thing, where wasn't it 40 years or something like that, where you can actually get a hold of it and they don't have a trap on it?
I think it's longer.
GSharp is giving me hell to stop talking.
Yeah, I think it's longer than that.
It's 75 years actually.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's 75 years, the same length as the copyright. So you write a song, you can play it on it for 75 years.
So what about your solo albums?
Same thing. It's Motown went to MCA or brought MCA. Motown sold wait a minute. Boston Adventures bought Motown. MCA came in to manage it. I have no clue where those masters are. It's just like, where are they? And the cool thing too, the cool thing about my album is I have it on what they call ADAT, because that's when digital media was coming in. And I did save, like I have Shall We Dance, Bang Bang, and some of the other ones on digital. So I can go back and remaster parts of that album, but without your 24 track, or your 48 track reels, you can't separate everything. Music is so different nowadays. that to remaster something, you really want to go in and open it up in the studio and remix it and really bring it up to date. But if you can't get a hold of your masters, and they just don't really care to give you your masters, they don't care, unless it's going to be a top 100 hit or top 10 hit. They're not interested because they're not going to make any money. So for all the Mazarati fans out there, that's the dilemma we're sitting with. Unless, hey, maybe all you guys can pull a petition together. Maybe we can send it to Paisley.
you let us know what we got to do.
And it really comes down to one thing.
It
really comes down to one thing as far as fan base is concerned. Do you want the artist or do you want the memory? Because you already got the memory. The question is, do you want the artist? And if you want the artist, then that requires us or somebody getting in the studio and recording new music. And it's not going to be trying to sound like some hip hop cat today or trying to sound like, Lil Pump. No, I mean, we're going to do what we do, right? So the question is, do you want that or do you want nostalgia? And a lot of times nostalgia has its place, but that's what you get when you go see The Time. You hear the exact same songs you've been hearing for 30 years. That's the reason for that. Because that's
the same order.
In that order, right?
Somebody said get the petition going.
Yeah, right. They're gonna be lucky to get a petition to get Prince to own not own, but his name to be on some of Highway 5. That's gonna be hard enough.
Well, Prince was dealing with that too. That's the reason why he re-recorded 1999, and he was up against the same exact stuff before. So it's oh my gosh! All right,
but we're still the best musicians in the world. When it all comes down, everybody out of Minneapolis, if you did anything with Prince, you're the best musicians in the world because everybody else learned how to be ninjas watching us. It wasn't like they, like if you go to LA right now, there's bands out in LA that wish they could sit down with us for 5 minutes just to soak up some of what we know, right? And you can't say it's a Minneapolis thing either. Because most of the cats who made Minneapolis sound famous weren't even from here, right? Terry wasn't born. Terry was, but Jimmy wasn't born here. Jesse wasn't born here. Sheila wasn't born here. All these people weren't born. I wasn't born here. So our sound, the sound that we call the Minneapolis sound, has to evolve. If it doesn't evolve, then you just basically got what I call a petting zoo. You got a bunch of people standing around looking at old animals in a cage, right?
Well, so, I do have to say one thing. Jimmy grew up around the corner from me, so he was there. He wasn't born, maybe not born here, but he did grow up. We grew up same block. I was 41st in Park. Jimmy was 41st in Portland. So I mean, I do know that he was around. Yeah.
And we bring different stuff to the table. So it's just a matter of what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear us doing what we do best, and that's playing great music, or do you want to hear, nostalgia? And you can get that by just going buying a record somewhere or something, right?
Well, and here's the interesting thing. When you did that private show in Atlanta and you guys performed that album, this kind of goes to what Elena is asking here. How about the live shows? Mazarati can still perform the music. Obviously, Terry's not in the picture, but, what you guys did there was absolutely phenomenal. It was such a great show, and I was so glad to be there and be a part of it. I mean, there wasn't a whole, but how many people were there that night? Maybe like 36 or something like that, because they capped you out at like 50 people in that room.
It was 125.
Yeah.
So they went beyond that. That's awesome.
It was hot, man. There no AC. It felt like no AC.
But here's the thing about Mazarati playing live. Okay, and this is another complication. The original Mazarati that I put together back in the day, it was an evolution of many different players. So what people remember is what's on the video, or when they went on tour. There was members that shifted that the basic audience doesn't even realize. To this day, like I was explaining earlier, all of these cats, man, life happens and you can't pull them back together. When you get thrown off track so far, it's really hard to get back on. And if you don't stay a musician, you don't stay in the game, then you kind of lose that. You lose it. And because trust me, I tried very diligently to pull the original guys back together. It ain't gonna happen. And so I formed Bad Boys of Paisley, which was an offshoot of Mazarati, because I was Mazarati. I mean, I was the one that I gave them their dance steps. I gave them, I taught them how to walk, how to talk, how to, take a microphone and control a crowd. I mean, I did to them exactly what Prince did to me, and I taught them everything that I learned. So what I did was I put together a new outfit called the Bad Boys of Paisley. But the problem that I still run into is it just doesn't feel authentic without at least 1/3 of the original, guys coming on board.
Yeah, understood.
Screamer is very sick. I don't know how many of you know, but Screamer is very sick. We had Tony Christian for a brief second there, but things didn't work out. And we had Marvin Gunn on board for a second, but things didn't work out. And so what happens is, to this day, there's still a lot of inner fighting and inner just turmoil. And to bring them back together, it's not worth it for me. So that's why we kind of formed the Bad Boys of Paisley. And we plan on doing new things. Now we're going to play all the Mazarati material, once COVID breaks, like what we did with the show you saw here in Atlanta. So that we are going to do that, but to bring back the original guys, man, I don't see it happening.
Yes. Well, and as G said, it's pretty much just one of those things where, you gotta, we all want to kind of relive those moments and feel the way that we felt when those albums came out, and that nostalgia part of it. This got all these great comments, because you got all these people in here and all these hundreds of people that are on the radio station listening all around the world right now that, have nothing but, positive things to say. Tony Halliburton, good friend of mine, one of the baddest bass players in Atlanta. If you ever need a studio bass player, this is your dude right here. BrownMark is definitely one of my favorite bass players. Too funky. Tony is the man for sure. But there are so many people in here that have nothing but positive things to say. You're seeing all the positive things. And so we have nothing but love and admiration for Mazarati and everything you did, putting Mazarati together. And it was just such a fantastic album. And if you got I know we've already gone over time, but if you got 10 extra minutes, I'd like to kind of run through these songs and see if you have any specific memories attached to any of these tracks.
I'm good. I got 10 minutes.
All right, cool.
I can give you 10.
All right, let's do that. Players Ball. We were just talking about the fact that the song is basically playing about the look that was happening at the time, where men were kind of dressing a little bit more effeminate, and this kind of chats a little bit about that. Players Ball. A quick question about this song. Thinking back at that time, did you feel that was more often the case than not, where the men wanting to keep up with that androgynous trend felt like they had to explain themselves all the time?
Players Ball originally was, about pimps and players, pimps and hoes and players. what Prince, kind of scratched his head at that one, and he was like, "Hey, Mark, we gotta change this up a little bit." And that's where the put on your lace and your button down pants. Terry's gonna teach you a brand new dance.
Prince did that. Of
yeah,
course.
so it shifted from what it was to that.
Should have stayed pimping, but Prince, you had to put some lace on everything.
So it took a shift, but it was a nice shift. It was a good concept to, make it about, you may think I'm one way, but Hang with me for a night. And then reassess it in the morning and let me know what you think. You know, that was kind of the attitude.
When you're standing out in the parking lot with no clothes on.
The walk of shame.
Oh, man.
Lonely Girl on
No,
Bourbon
he didn't.
Street. Lonely Girl on Bourbon Street.
Now, that was a song that I wrote. I remember when I was, you know, we would go to Bourbon Street on tour, starting with Controversy in 1999. And, you know, Bourbon Street was an interesting place. And, you know, a lot of prostitution, man, a lot of, you know, runaway girls, you know, and I could see it. I saw it when I was there, you know, every year. And even though there's all the festivities of festival, there's still a dark side, and I got to see that dark side. And when I started writing that song, I wanted to write a story. You know, it's a fictional story, but it's a story about how I envisioned somebody could get entangled with that life, you know, and that's Lonely Girl on Bourbon Street. That's what it became.
And obviously the big player here, 100 miles per hour. Obviously that's a song that that Prince kind of put together, but you had a lot of involvement in that song too with some of the song structure. But I know this one probably got a lot of stories attached to it, I would imagine. But thoughts on 100 miles per hour?
100 miles an hour just is what it was, man. You know, it went from jerk out to 100 miles an hour. I wanted more funk rock, and Prince delivered. Prince understood what Mazarati was. He's about the only person that I ever met that understood music theory the way I do. I mean, matter of fact, I learned music theory from him. I mean, that dude understands music theory. And so when he really got to know Mazarati and see what I was trying to do, man, he delivered that hit because he knew exactly how to put that together for me. He knew exactly what I was looking for.
Man, she's just that kind of lady. Oh, there must be a story here.
You wanna explain that one? I'll let you explain Little Susie.
Yeah, let me.
All right, G. I'll give that one to you.
I mean, see, if I had never worked with Terry, I wouldn't have any idea what y'all are talking about. Yeah, I heard the song, but I worked with Terry, man, and believe me, I roomed with Terry, so that was even worse. Right? So, yeah, let's just go next song.
All right, next song is by far my absolute positive I love, don't get me wrong, I love 100 miles per hour. I love that song, but Stroke is by far my absolute positive favorite song on this album. When this song comes on, I don't know if it's the way, there's something about the way this song is structured that I cannot focus on anything else. If I'm working, it doesn't, when this song comes on, I just have to stop and just stare at the radio or dance or do whatever, man. This song is my absolute favorite. Is there any story about how this song was put together? Because this is just the jam.
Yeah, definitely. So Stroke, if you remember, do fries go with this shake?
Of course. Do fries go with that shake? Of course.
Yeah. That used to close out the club every week at First Avenue, Funk Night. Every week, that was closing out. And so I had a thought. I was just like, man, that groove is so funky. Let me go home. I was like, okay, yeah, let me get in the studio. And then I translated that and I brought it to the club the next week. Just, you know, we would bring the back then you could bring a little DAT. Or you could, you could just burn your own little copy just to get a test. And the DJs knew me, so they would play it. So they played it second before the last song, before Do Fries Go With That Shake. So it, you know, Mazarati came out, you know, with that, and all of a sudden, you know, Do Fries Go With That Shake. They blended them together, and I was like, oh, okay. I went back to the skillet, and then, you know, started working some more. And then, you know, the bass line got nastier. The drums, you know, I put that boom, 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 boom. I used to take this D. Yeah, I take that DX7 and I would just mash the bass keys. And I would just boom, 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 you know, just to get that that rumble with the kick. And then the problem was, okay, I done worked all these weeks on the jam, but I never created a song. And so I was like, dang, well, you know, what do you do? I was like, man, stroke, stroke, you know, and so that became the next piece. Went down to the club, man. All people heard was stroke, stroke. I didn't care. You know, I wanted to test it out, and it worked. And then I said, okay, I got to build a song around stroke, which there wasn't much I could do. Billy Squire, I was like, you know, oh man, okay, you know. So I was like, okay, what do I write? What do I write about? And so that's why the lyrics are a little corny, but it works. You know,
it's a consummate Minneapolis sound song because what it does, it starts with the drums and builds. A lot of times, the stuff in Minneapolis started as just grooves, and if you were smart enough and lyrical and melodic enough to put a nice melody and a lyric over one of those grooves, you had a hit, especially in a club, because that's where you tested out your stuff. We used to go around Lake Calhoun and just roll our windows down and play demos and see how the people reacted to it. And if they groove, we're like, okay, we're gonna work on that one. And that's how it went down.
LAW's in the house. Say what's up, guys.
Hey,
man,
what's up, Lawrence?
Man, so many folks in here. Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna let you guys read the comments. I can't even keep up. All right, I'll get a few more songs. Susie.
Okay.
Okay, lyrical discussion. Real person. Okay, let me just do this. Let's do it this way. I'm going to pull some lyrics from this song, and I'm going to let you respond. So it's kind of like a psychiatrist meeting, okay?
Do you want me to respond?
It doesn't matter. Either one of you. Here we go.
It's probably the one I need to talk about. We're going to let Mark lay out of this one. Go ahead.
I'm into Reese's Cups, not Baby Ruth.
Right? Right?
Well, you got, hey,
who's taking that one?
You got to understand something. Back in the day, homophobia
you can say anything.
Oh yeah, back in the day, homophobia was this big thing with, especially with men who were trying to find this androgynous, you know, feel, this pretty boy thing mixed in with being, you know, a tough man, you know, a tough guy, and it was hard to find that balance. And so when I started writing Susie, you know, I was just kind of telling a real life scenario of somebody that I knew, ain't mentioning no names, who had gotten tangled in with a transvestite relationship. And so I was like, this would be a good song. And so, you know, boom, boom, dude, she's on the phone again. Boom, 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 sounds like a man. Girl, your voice is so sexy. You know, so that's where that whole,
like a man to me.
Yeah. So that's where that whole thing came from. And then, you know, the peanut butter cups and the Baby Ruth, you know that it's self-explanatory. You know, it's are you straight or are you gay? You know, it was just that whole thing, you know.
And what I find interesting about this song is that you never really reveal whether it's one or the other. You kind of let the listener kind of decide.
That's called songwriting.
Yeah, true. Right.
You're not writing a song if you're saying exactly what you're thinking out of your mouth, just come out of your head. You just say it. That's not songwriting. That's just talking on a track. When you write a song, you have to be able to make people say, well, wait a minute, what is he really saying? What is he, like that, right? So, and you can say the same things without saying the same thing. But that's old. I sound like an old granddad with that deal. You know, these kids today, they don't say anything. You know.
And you know, I had a different mindset back then, because you know, coming up with Prince in that whole environment, like I said, homophobia was like rampant, you know, and especially in the Black community back then. And so for me to find a balance between who I am, I mean, I'm straight as you can be, but nobody else saw that. I mean, I saw a survey on me online that said 70 or 80% of everybody that took the survey said I was bisexual, you know. And so that lets you know right there what type of audience I was dealing with, and what the perception of me was. So oh, that ain't right. That ain't right. Ain't right.
Just
but you know what it was. So I had I didn't know how to coming out being a musician. I didn't know how to talk about that, and so
we were kids.
Yeah. So nowadays I changed the name. You know, it doesn't read the same. Like when we did it live.
Yeah.
You know, girl, your voice is how was it? Girl, your voice is real sexy, but it sounds
just like a man to me.
Girl, I think you're girl, I think you're real sexy. But tell me,
it sounds just like a man too.
No, tell me, is it him or me? It was a whole song.
It
was a different song. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It was the same song, but we changed the lyrics. So it's right. He's on the phone again. It sounds like your man. So it basically was a story about a girl who was with the dude, but she was seeing somebody else.
Yeah,
right. That's
they
all.
totally changed that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
we
you just changed a few words and it changed the whole meaning of the song.
Yeah, and we had to do that.
It's called songwriting.
and we had to do that because the world today is a different world than it was in the 80s. It's very different. And you know, the last thing that we wanted to do was offend anybody. Like even back then, we didn't mean to be offensive, but back then, that, you know, I mean, that's just the way the brothers did it. We just called it out.
And Prince did the same thing. Prince did the same exact thing. When Prince decided he didn't want to swear anymore, or he didn't want to talk too explicitly sexual, he just changed the lyric. He can do that. It's called songwriting.
Something he was very, very good at, for sure. And you were too. I mean, Mark, some lyrical content is just amazing. I mean, it's the way that you write is just very, very fluid, and it really kind of fills out the story, and it really kind of creates a visual. So, I mean, you were just so good at doing that. But what was interesting is that we're talking about the next song. There's only 2 songs left on the album. Well, technically 3 if you consider the other one that was after I Guess It's All Over. That was, I guess, came out on the second release of that album. Trying to remember what that was. I'll remember in a second. But Strawberry Lover started out, correct me if I'm wrong, since we seem to stumble on a couple errors tonight. Fear the Shadow was what the song used to be called.
Yeah.
And then Prince got a hold of it, and then it became Strawberry Lover. So how different was the song from what you had to what Prince came up with for Strawberry Lover?
Well, first, Prince never got a hold of it, So let me correct that right now. Prince never got a hold of that song. I went in the studio. I said, I want to put this rock song on the album. Mazarati does it live, but I want to put it on the album. So I laid down the drum track. Then I got on the guitar, laid down the guitar track, and then I started to build, the bass. And then we brought Terry in, and he sang, and then we brought Screamer in, and he did the solos. And he did the break parts. When we got it finished, it was like Fear the Shadow. What the heck is that? I used to write very, very what's the word? I used to use a lot of metaphorically. That's how I would put songs together back in there. I mean, I had a song called "Man in a Bottle." I mean, what's that all about? And so what was happening is, the record labels, Warner Brothers, they're like, hey, there's, I mean, give us a language that the average person can understand. And so I went to Prince with that, and we had that discussion, and he said, let me think about it. And then he came back with this whole strawberry idea. And I was like, that's dope. Let's run with that. And so the song became Strawberry Love. Took on a whole new lyrical change.
Totally new meaning.
Yeah, whole new meaning. Mm-hmm.
And that's not the only song that he did that to. We have one more song that was actually on the official release, which was "I Guess It's All Over," which, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it started out as "We Did Things Our Way" is what the name of the song was before it was called "I Guess It's All Over." Is that correct?
I mean, I don't remember. You probably heard that from one of the Mazarati guys who weren't there in the beginning, but that's what they thought it was called. I mean, the song had many different, I mean, from the evolution of the way I put these songs together. I mean, they changed several times before that album was written. So yeah, they went through a couple different changes, but I guess it was all over when we got in the studio. I remember Prince walked in, and you talk about a prolific songwriter. This guy was great, and he listened to that Mazarati album, and he said, "Man, this could be really big. This group can be big for you." And I said, "I know. So I want to make sure that whatever I put on it, it's got the best. It's got the best thing happening." And then that's when he said, "Okay, what do you think about this?" And then I guess It's All Over started to take on this metamorphosis, and I was like, oh man, that's dope, and so me and him worked on that together. And then when it came to the guitar solo, a lot of people don't realize that's Prince playing the guitar on I Guess It's All Over. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. And he looked at me and said, let me put something on it. And I was like, you sure? He said, yeah. I said, man, I can call Screamer up. He said, no, let me put something on it. Because, and it wasn't that I didn't want him to do it, but it's like, I mean, right. I want something to go on that Screamer could do. I mean, because Prince get on the guitar, just, wear it out.
Right.
But he surprised me how simplistic he can get. So he grabs the acoustic and he starts doing this solo, and he's looking at me and he's saying, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's put this melody in there. And then so he would go back and we punch in. We punched that solo in. It is not, that solo was not done front to back. We punched that whole solo in. And when I was done with that, I was in such shock because now I had learned something about Prince, and that was he could come down on my level, see, and show me how it's done in a simplistic form. Because I'm pretty sure if he was in his own studio, he would have did what he did and it would have been over. But he cared about how I viewed that album and what it was supposed to feel like, and what it would be like if Screamer was playing it. And he let me produce that, which shocked me. Because Prince don't let nobody produce nothing on him. But right. He let me work with him on that stuff. So yeah, that was phenomenal. That's one of my best memories about I Guess It's All Over.
Well, I got to say, I know we got to wrap things up here. It is just an honor to have both of you on board here to kind of talk about this. Again, this is the 35th anniversary of Mazarati's debut album that is tomorrow, March 4th, which is, it's just mind-boggling to me because I remember going to the store and getting this album, and I just, it's incredible to know that it's been this long a time, and it's really stood the test of time as well. But before we go, I'll give both of you a little bit of opportunity to kind of promote whatever you guys got going on. I do know that for those of you who do not have this, yes, there you go. For those of you who do not have this, you need to pick it up. It is BrownMark's book, My Life in the Purple Kingdom. You need to pick this up. It is a phenomenal book. You can get it on Amazon and a big variety of places. The GSharp, you got something going on that you wanna promote?
I mean, I do sync licensing, so I got some songs that were on, some NBC TV shows and stuff like that. So if you go to my Spotify, you go to my Spotify channel, just look up GSharp, all capital letters. You can find my stuff, and that's basically what I'm doing. I'm just sitting back waiting on Brown to call me, because when he calls in, and hey,
to Mazarati 3,
right? But to the public, let's check it to the public. If you say you love us, if you say you ain't gotta love me. If you say you love BrownMark, right? Then when you hear about us doing something, be there. When you hear about us doing something live, be there. When you hear us doing something on a podcast or whatever, be there. Show up, right? Show up.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need, right? Because we need you just like you need us. So,
right.
Coming out of COVID, it's very few people going to be able to actually regroup and play. We can play anywhere because we're that good. We can play in Mark's living room, right?
But breaking out that AK-47.
No, we don't need $1 million stage setup. We can kill on the street corner, right? So when you hear about it, come show up. If you want to spend some money, spend some money, right?
I do. Oh, hold on, I got lost here. I do want to say one thing. For all you bass players and all you musicians out there. Starting this Friday, and this has been long coming, on YouTube. Check out my YouTube channel, BrownMark Nation channel. I've been experimenting with a lot of mood music, relaxation music for those of you who just like to chill out. But I'm starting this Friday. I'm doing a funk bass tutorial videos every Friday. I'm going to take a medley of the funkiest, not just Prince bass lines, but in the history of funk. I'm taking some of the funkiest bass lines. I'm breaking them down to a simplistic form, and then some brown stank or brown style. And I'm showing you how I manipulate a bass style and a sound for stage, for live performance. Because I've had a lot of bass players ask me for years, what are you doing? I can't tell what you're playing. So there's a secret to that, and I'm gonna break it down. So I'm at an age now where I don't need to keep it a secret no more. So I'm gonna break it down and just show people how I do that. And that's starting Friday. And we are going to be breaking down stroke, for those of you who like that bass line, 100 miles an hour, and some of the other stuff. We're going to be breaking down some serious bass lines and teaching not just the bass line, because anybody can play them, but what makes them work. It's the magic of the ghost noting. That's the key, and that's what I'm going to be teaching online starting every Friday. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So it's going to be a weekly thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, gentlemen, it's been great. Make sure if you have, and I meant to talk about this, but I really wanted to give a shout out to Bernadette Cooper. Because
definitely
Madam X was not to mention Climax, obviously, but Madam X was an amazing project. And for those that don't know, she was also involved in Mazarati 2 to an extent as well. So, that kind of speaks to a lot of the vibe that album had. And man, it's just been super, super amazing that G put up some put up a little bit of what's this playlist got going on here, G?
Spotify. That's my Spotify channel.
It's just he's got a Spotify channel. Look at him.
That's all. Yeah. It's all over.
Yeah,
gentlemen.
Hey, I just want to say, Bernadette. She was instrumental in helping us try to find a new sound for the Maserati 2 because they were different. It was very different from Maserati 1. They were two different, same group, but two very different sounds. And I wasn't involved in all the production on the Maserati 2. I did half the album, Bernadette did the other half. So it was a very interesting combination, but it was Motown experimenting, trying to figure out how to make this group, you know, come alive again. And I just always said, if you don't stick with the original recipe, well, then you don't have the same flavor. It's just it's going to change. And
well, it's definitely two of the, you know, best albums to come out of that era, and it's an honor to have both of you on there again tomorrow. 35th anniversary of the debut album of Mazarati. So I'm glad we were able to get this out of the way and talk a little bit about some of the songs that are on the album and just kind of, you know, go through it. And it's been great. I know everybody here has been talking about how fantastic this was, and lots of thanks and love coming through. Mark, cool. It's been amazing. You need to send me you have my email, and you need to send me your version of Jerk Out. I need to hear Maserati's version of Jerk Out.
I got to get it. I got to get it from Questlove. Questlove got everything, man.
Everybody's everything.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll send an email to Amir and see if he'll loose it. He probably won't unless he gets approval from you.
Okay. Yeah, it's dope though. I just heard it a few weeks ago. Terry was messing that up.
Well, it's been very, very cool that you guys came to hang out. G, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, Mark, as always. And for those of you who missed a lot of it, this is going to be posted on Facebook. We'll keep it up there all day tomorrow in honor of the 35th anniversary of that album. Mark, G, thank you, one and all.
Thank you, man. G, why you big?
Why you big crusty?
Why you black?
Why you Paul
alligator
Bunyan?
hat wearing?
You
crusty
Pirates of the Caribbean scarf wearing,
chicken eating black.
Why you old man
toenail having? All right, man. We'll catch y'all later.
Good night, everyone. See you later.
Thanks
for another edition of Funkatopia Live, y'all. See ya.